The top business stories live from the Sky News City studio. The UK economy returned to growth in November, rising by 0.3%. After Allied strikes on Houthi militia, the Treasury warns of dangers to the economy of Red Sea attacks from Yemen. And JP Morgan Chase, the biggest bank in the United States, reports record profits. Good afternoon, this is Business Live with me, Ian King. Tesla has paused production at its factory in Germany for 2 weeks, while Volvo Cars will next week halt production at its plant in Belgium for 3 days due to a shortage of parts caused by disruption to shipping in the Red Sea. Meanwhile, the furniture retailer IKEA has admitted some products may not be available for the same reason. Well, the news comes after the United States, the UK and others, including Australia, Bahrain, Canada and the Netherlands, carried out military strikes against the Iranian-backed Houthi militia in Yemen that have been attacking shipping in the region. Well, joining me now is Peter Sand. He's Chief Analyst at the Ocean and Air Freight Rate Benchmarking Platform Zanetta and an industry expert on global maritime supply chains. Peter, good afternoon to you. Do you expect to see more announcements of these kinds that we've had from Volvo and Tesla?
Hi, Ian. I'm afraid we need to see things get worse before they finally get better. What we saw last night was another inch up in terms of risk to add on top of an already very tense situation. And we foresee this will go on for more than a couple of more months. We're not talking about days and weeks anymore. So I expect surely more announcements like what you just told from Tesla and Volvo, indeed.
What proportion of shipping from the Red Sea is now being diverted around the Cape of Good Hope?
Our estimates point to 9 out of 10 container ships are now heading south of Africa into their final destination in North Europe, in the Mediterranean and US East Coast also. And of course, shippers in those areas with goods coming from Far East Asia consider now their options. What do I need to do in order to minimize these disruptions that eventually does hit them, not only in terms of freight rates going up by more than 200% in 3 weeks, according to Zanetta platform, but certainly also to limit the impact on their just-in-time supply chains when the goods arrive 10 days later than expected, if at all.
Just to go back to what you said there, Peter, freight rates have gone up by 200% in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's one indication when shit hits the fan. We see that massive uncertainty play out. Obviously, this is a mini peak season for container shipping, getting goods out of the main production region in Asia ahead of the Chinese Lunar New Year next month. So more product is coming on sea right now. And with the current disruptions, all shippers seek to get even more floating right now, and that's causing rates to go up sharply, not only due to the uncertainty that is massive, but also due to increased demand for that scarce capacity that we see right now being offered for Far East exports right here, right now, with the delays that we've already seen in the global supply chains for container shipping.
OK, I must apologise to the viewers there, Peter, because you did say a rude word there. What about the cost of the extra fuel that is being incurred here?
If you compare a trade lane from Far East into North Europe, UK for that matter, our estimates are that you need to add 1 million of extra dollars in terms of added fuel from going around. And in order also to make up for the longer transit times, you need to add more ships or sail faster. That can easily make up for another 1 million on top of that. Obviously, you also save 1.5 million from going through the Suez Canal. But the final number is that we have verifiable cost at least exceeding $1,000 per container that is moved, all the way up to $2,000, depending on how carriers deal with this and how they make up for the lost capacity in the market. So there are verifiable costs, and there are massive uncertainty on top of that gives rates coming up from $1,800 soon to be at $5,400. So it's significant, and it gets worse before it gets better, I'm afraid.
Peter, just clear up for me, if you could, please, what the arrangements would be. If I'm exporting goods, if I'm bringing them from Asia to Europe, I've already paid a set agreed sum, and then the ship has to divert. What is the container shipping operator's ability there to claw back some of those higher costs?
In the legal conditions, the bill of lading, there are provisions made for exceptional situations like this. So at the carrier's discretion, and when they see risks like this, where the crew, the safety of the crew, the safety of the vessel, and of course also the cargo is this high, they may reroute, and they may also pass on the extra cost under given contracts that are already being made. But of course, this is also something for legal disputes, as it is happening with such rapid development that it's no more than 3 weeks ago that we saw more or less business as usual, despite tensions already boiling at that point in time, and where we see now more or less a full-scale rerouting of container ships. So there are ways to pass it on. There are legal provisions for it. And then on top of that, there's also the rush for some shippers that may have time-sensitive cargo that needs to move, where a preferential agreement may be strict or signed also with the carriers if they are in need of space and equipment. That's extra several $1,000s on top of what is being quoted by me here as the market, say, average rate right here, right now. So there's money to be made, and also money to be lost, and of course, it impacts the wider economy to some extent as well.
What about insurance premiums? Are they starting to rise?
Yeah, they rise often pretty fast when war risk is attached to something like this. But the impact from insurance is dwarfed by the extra added fuel cost and the cost of adding more ships into the existing services.
OK, Peter, thanks for joining me this afternoon. Much appreciated.
Very welcome.
Now, the UK economy turned to growth in November, according to figures published this morning. The Office for National Statistics said that gross domestic product was estimated to have grown by 0.3% in November, following a fall of 0.3% in October. The main contributor to growth was the services sector, which grew by 0.4%. Production output grew by 0.3% in November after a fall of 1.3% in October. The construction sector contracted by 0.2%, but that represented an improvement on the 0.4% contraction in October. A drop of profits for the final 3 months of 2023 has failed to prevent JP Morgan Chase, the biggest bank in the United States, from reporting a record annual profit. The lender saw profits for the final 3 months of the year slip to $9.31 billion, which was down 15% on the same months a year earlier. For the full year, though, JP Morgan reported a profit of $49.6 billion, which was up 32% on 2022. That reflected both higher interest rates and the benefits of acquiring the California-based lender First Republic Bank in May last year. BlackRock, the world's biggest asset manager, is buying the private equity firm Global Infrastructure Partners for $12.5 billion in its biggest deal for 15 years. GIP, founded in 2006, manages $100 billion worth of assets. Its portfolio includes Edinburgh Airport and stakes in Gatwick Airport and the Hornsea 1 offshore wind farm in the North Sea. BlackRock also reported a full-year operating profit of $6.6 billion. That was down 2% on 2022. Its assets under management during the year rose by 16% to $10 trillion. Burberry lost more than 14% of its stock market value at one point today after admitting profits for the year will be worse than expected. The luxury fashion group said its recently launched turnaround had become much more challenging against the backdrop of slowing luxury demand, and said it had experienced a further deceleration in the key December trading period. The warning follows similar comments from other players in the sector. Burberry now expects to report an adjusted operating profit of between £410 and £460 million for the year to the end of March, having previously indicated it would be around £552 million. And the Federal Aviation Administration, the main US aviation regulator, said this afternoon that it may insist on using an independent third party to oversee Boeing's inspections of its aircraft and quality controls. The news comes a week after a Boeing 737 MAX 9 jet lost a passenger door plug while in flight. The FAA said it was launching an audit of Boeing's 737 MAX 9 production line and its suppliers to evaluate Boeing's compliance with its improved quality procedures. Now, this week, we've been bringing you interviews from the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, the world's biggest annual get-together of both traditional and non-traditional tech industries. Well, among those displaying their wares has been Brunswick Corporation, the $6 billion boat and engine builder, which has been showcasing 2 new electric outboards and a Marina of the Future concept, demonstrating the future of recreational boating. Well, joining me now, I'm pleased to say, it's the Chief Executive of Brunswick, Dave Folkes. Dave, good to see you today. This is your 4th year at CES. Some people might be surprised to see a boat manufacturer there.
Yes, thank you for having me, Ian. Of course, it's a great showcase for us. If you think we're the biggest player in the recreational marine industry, and our industry is subject to some of the same technological and business model kind of mega trends that you see in other verticals, like autonomy and connectivity and electrification. So it's important for us to be on a stage like this, showing our developments in those areas, which are really, pretty amazing.
To what extent is technology disrupting the maritime world?
I'd say it's beginning to in a number of different ways, in somewhat of a similar way to you see in automotive. Electrification is coming in, mainly in smaller vessels, though. If you think about boats, they're more like aircraft, really. They need more power. They're a bit more weight sensitive than cars. So the current technology doesn't carry you as far into the product line, but it is important in smaller products. Most of our products are now connected just with an app, just in the same way as you would, buy with a new car. And then autonomy is a bit of a different kind of implementation for us, but there are some situations like docking in boating where autonomous capability can really take some of the stress and challenge out of that.
And that is indeed one of the things that you're showcasing at the event this year. How quickly will that become a standard feature of your boats?
Well, it'll probably start in more premium models, and we're bringing it out in those models next year commercially. And then typically with technology like this, as it becomes better understood, the cost goes down, then we cascade it into the more kind of core models. We've done that with pretty much every technology that we've developed so far. So, for example, many of our boats are already controlled by a joystick. They have station keeping capability, and that really carries down pretty far into our product line now. So we would expect the same thing to happen with autonomous docking.
Now, we've spoken in the past about the electric outboards that you've been developing. What sort of take-up are you seeing there?
Very good. Europe is really the main market. Europe has some restricted waterways that don't allow internal combustion engines. They can be smaller lakes, but even some city centers in Europe. So that's the main market. We launched our first electric outboard earlier in 2023. We've made about 6,000 so far, which is a really good volume for the marine industry, which is obviously somewhat smaller than, say, automotive. But we're very pleased with our ramp up and also with the consumer response to those products.
So what does the Marina of the Future concept look like that you're showcasing?
Well, we wanted to show these new technologies and, of course, our wonderful products in context, as opposed to just, here's a boat or here's a piece of technology. So we wanted to create this beautiful kind of backdrop landscape, really representative of our Freedom Boat Club. Freedom Boat Club is a model that we run, a business model. We have 400 locations worldwide and about 100,000 members. This is a shared access model, a subscription model to boating. You don't own the boat, but you can operate the boat where you live in your home location or in one of the 400 locations that we have all around the world, some in the UK, some in Europe, many in the US, even in Australia, Canada. So it's a very convenient way of boating without boat ownership. And we wanted to show that context with some of these near future technologies.
More broadly, Dave, how are you looking at 2024? I mean, obviously, your market is quite interest rate sensitive. If the Fed starts cutting rates, would you expect to see a big pickup in demand?
We would definitely see that as positive. We currently believe the first half of 2024 is going to be somewhat like the second half of 2023. And sales were reasonably strong in the second half of 2023. For the full year 2023, they were probably down about 5% in the US market versus 2022. But actually, with some stimulation from incentives and promotions, we were able to keep sales pretty strong. We expect a similar situation in the first half of 2024, but as rates improve, hopefully, over the course of the year, we would expect that to stimulate back half demand.
Well, best of luck with that, Dave. Good to see you again this afternoon. Thanks for joining me.
Very nice to be with you, Ian. Thank you very much.
Still to come here on Business Live, we'll have a look at how the markets have finished the week. Don't go away.
I'm Katie Spencer and I'm Sky News' arts and entertainment correspondent. When you think of Glastonbury, it's mud you want and music. They're going to cross to us live in a minute. Okay.
We always were capable of doing this.
Oh, they're wonderful children as an audience.
Who did that?
Maverick here on the red carpet. I'm so excited. We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
Nor have I ever struck any woman in my life.
There's this illusion of power.
Are you feeling well?
I remember covering the Oscars and that now infamous moment, the Will Smith slap. You can tell from these crowds just how excited people are for the return of Fly.
These actors playing the lead roles were born long after the Sex Pistols broke up.
As a team, we've interviewed some of the biggest stars in the world.
Okay, I'll talk to you.
Don't leave me!
Yeah, okay.
There's no easy goodies. There's no easy baddies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I just took a shower above the clouds. You know why? Because this is the Emirates A380. It's like Emirates, it's like better.
Welcome back. A bit of breaking news to bring you. Earlier on in the programme, I mentioned that the FAA, the main US aviation administrator, has been hinting that there may be third-party supervision of Boeing's safety checks. Well, the administrator at the FAA, Michael Whitaker, has just been speaking to the Reuters news agency, and some quite interesting lines have come out of that. He has said that Boeing at the moment is not fixing the problem of its production issues. He's also said that the FAA will not approve a return to the 737 MAX 9 until such time as there is no chance of this happening again. And he's also told Reuters that it is pretty clear that this is a manufacturing problem with the panel blowout and not a design problem. So some rather discouraging comments there for Boeing from the chief aviation regulator. Well, the oil price has risen on the back of the US and UK attacks on Iranian-backed Houthi militia overnight. It's hit its highest level at one point today since the 27th of December. A barrel of Brent crude currently changing hands at $78.64 a barrel. That's up a shade over 1.5%. On the equity markets, well, European stocks have finished the day in positive territory right now. The container shipping groups Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd are both higher on hopes that the strikes on Yemen overnight will restore order to Red Sea shipping routes. Airbus, by the way, that's up some 3% after its new orders beat those of Boeing for a fifth consecutive year. Well, here in London, the FTSE 100 has also finished in positive territory, up nearly 2/3 of 1% in a broad-based rally. In terms of the leading percentage gainers, well, they include the aircraft parts maker Melrose and the aircraft engine maker Rolls-Royce, both among the leading gainers, I think partly on the back of those strong Airbus figures. While BAE Systems has had a good day, all of the defence sector is in positive territory right now on the back of those events overnight in the Middle East. As for the leading faller, well, no surprises for guessing it's Burberry, though it's clawed back some of its earlier losses, finished the day down 5.5%. Marks and Spencer continues to run into profit after yesterday's trading update. The FTSE is still on course to finish the week lower. In fact, it has done. Outside the FTSE, the defence contractor Hunting, look at that, up more than 7.5%. That's on the back of positive broker comment. The wealth manager Quilter, though, is down 3%. That's also on broker comment. Over in Wall Street, well, markets have perked up as US producer price inflation came in below expectations. Big story over there this afternoon. All of America's big four banks have all published quarterly reports today. Pity the poor analysts trying to wade through all those numbers. Well, Bank of America currently off by 2%, Wells Fargo off by 1.75%, and Citigroup off by 0.5%. The other gainer, though, is JP Morgan. Only just, it was up at 1% earlier on. It's only up 0.25% now. Pretty creditable results, I thought. On foreign exchange markets, pretty quiet today, to be honest with you. The dollar having a good afternoon because the inflation number came in below expectations. So joining me this afternoon is Janet Murray, Head of Market Analysis at RBC Brewin Dolphin. Janet, good afternoon to you. I know you don't want to talk about the banks in detail, but what are the sort of general themes that have emerged for you this afternoon?
Hi, good morning, Ian. Thanks for having me. Well, generally speaking, JP Morgan, for example, it has benefited significantly from the high interest rates over the course of 2023. So basically, the profits earned from the interest from the loans versus the deposit, the net interest margin, it has reached a record. So it has been extremely beneficial. But overall speaking, I think some of the other banks suffered because of, for example, higher severance cost. For example, Citi, they're cutting a lot of people, so that would incur upfront severance costs, etc. And whereas Bank of America, they are suffering from lower bond trading revenue. So it's a bit of a mix, but JP Morgan stands out as the clear winner. And I think the overall message is that the US banks have in general benefited from the high interest rate environment.
Indeed. Well, that may not last too much longer because the PPI number today was significantly below expectations. I mean, we were talking this time yesterday about the CPI readout potentially pushing back the date of rate cuts. This is a bit more positive.
Yes, I think markets have actually continued to price in a lot of rate cuts in the US. And after the producer price index came in lower than expected, I think I just checked they're pricing in more than 6 rate cut now, 6.5 rate cuts in the US this year. So that is actually more than before the CPI report came out yesterday. I think because the producer prices, they are actually falling by 3 consecutive months. So that's actually pretty significant. And if you look at the headline producer cost year on year, is only growing at about 1%, whereas the core producer prices is lower than 2%. And this is regarded as a leading indicator of inflation. So I think analysts are just getting more upbeat and convinced that inflation will eventually reach 2% and the Fed will be able to cut interest rates. So yeah, you're right. I think the high interest rate environment may not stay long. And I think analysts will be looking at reassessing the profitability of these large US banks.
And briefly, Janet, if you would please, a word on Burberry.
Yes, Burberry basically faced the largest one-day fall in over a decade because they are issuing a surprise profit warning. I think a lot of us are already aware that the luxury sector is not doing pretty well, but I think Burberry has some company-specific factor. It is trying to reinvigorate its brand and trying to improve its marketing, but it is proving to be very difficult, this turnaround strategy. Its price point is still relatively high for some of its consumer base. But aside from this company-specific factor, I think industry-wise, we know that they rely a lot on the Chinese consumer spending, and that is slowing.
Very good. Janet, sorry we're out of time. Good to see you this afternoon. That's it from me. I'm back on Monday at 11:30. Hope to see you then. Stay tuned. Up next, it's Jonathan Samuels. Cheerio.